Hi guys, Trev here. I'm just going to teach you about common chords. And the common chords is basically a set of quite simple chords which are going to set you up for kind of the majority of songs you're going to come across. Well, for a long time actually, so they're quite a thorough set of chords. There are, of course, other chords past the common chords, but if you really spend some time learning these really well, I think that's a really good place to start for a foundation. I'm going to do it on guitar, and I'm also going to show you on the piano the chords as well. So I'll do it as kind of one lesson so you can kind of relate the two, and that's hopefully quite kind of helpful. I did spend some time making some new little chord diagrams. I actually found my old ones after I'd finished making these. Spent a long time sort of drawing them out, but I'll use these today, and I hope you kind of get something out of the lesson. If you've not seen a chord box before, most of you have, but the lines going down are the strings. So they're the strings. The lines going across are the frets. So the frets are kind of here. And the dots, you can probably guess, are where you put your fingers. Okay, so that's a chord box. Sometimes in a chord box, you might have an X. Okay, and the X means ideally don't play the string. So for that chord, we wouldn't play that string and we'd actually strum the other strings. Okay, so the first chord is E. If you put your first finger on the third string, first fret, and then put your second finger on the fifth string, second fret, and then your third finger goes in the middle on the fourth string, second fret. So you make a kind of little shape like that, and it sounds like that. You're strumming all the strings because there's no X's, and if you were to strum near the sound hole for an acoustic guitar makes the best sound. If you've got an electric guitar, you might have a pickup selector, so you might want to play with that just to get the best sound before you're strumming. Okay, so on piano, we've got basically a few different options as to how to play with chords. So for an E chord, you could either play just an E note. So you could play an E note, you could play it in either hand. So you could just play what's called the root note. To make a triad, so to make 3 notes in the right hand, we've got an E, a G sharp, and a B. So to make the full E chord, you'd play that. And if you wanted to put the bass note in as well, that sounds quite nice. So beginners, you might want to just start with thumb on the named note. So for an E chord, play an E, and then try and count up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which makes a fifth, and put one in the middle. So don't worry too much at the moment about whether it's a white note or a black note, because I'll just tell you. So you can kind of learn them. So you've got E, G sharp, and B. Okay, A is our next chord. Basically, we've got first finger on the fourth string, second fret. Then we've got next to it on the third string, second fret, our second finger. And then our third finger on the second string, second fret. So you've got a line of 3. And when I teach my kids at school that know an A note, I often say put an A note and one finger either side of it to make that A. Okay? Quite a difficult chord. Sometimes this finger can kind of get in the way of that open string there, but you've got 3, and then in terms of strumming, you don't play the lowest E string because it's got an X, so ideally you would strum like that. And you can actually, if you want to, sort of mute that other string if you want to give a full strum sound. So don't worry too much about the X's, but they do mean something. Okay, so on the piano, we'd have an A note and a C sharp note and an E note. And if we were to add the bass note as well. Okay, next up we've got D. Okay, so D is sort of the shape of a triangle. We've got our first finger, 3rd string, 2nd fret. We've got our second finger on the 1st string, 2nd fret. And then our 3rd finger goes on the 2nd string, 3rd fret to make that shape of a triangle. Okay, and that's a D chord. In terms of picking, you've got 2 X's, so we don't actually play the bottom 2 strings, and we just strum from there. Okay, and on the piano we have a D, an F sharp and an A. And if you wanted to add a D in the bass note on the other hand. Okay, next we've got E minor. E minor is probably the first chord that I've taught most of the guitarists because it's probably the most simple chord we've got. So you've just got 2 fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th string, 2nd fret, and then a finger next to it on the 4th string, 2nd fret. Okay, so you've got 2 fingers like that, and we're strumming all of the strings. In terms of fingering, some people use different fingers, and this applies to all chords actually. So you could try maybe doing it with fingers 2 and 3 rather than 1 and 2. And depending on where you're changing, it might be that you prefer a different fingering for each chord. On the piano, an E minor would have an E, a G and a B. So I often think of the minor as sounding a bit sad. So if you're confused on the piano about whether it's major or minor, see if you can move that middle note to make it sound happy, E major, or sad, E minor. E, G and B. And if you add the bass note, okay, next we've got A minor. So A minor is first finger on the 2nd string, 1st fret, and then the 2nd finger on the 4th string, 2nd fret, and then the 3rd finger in the middle on the 3rd string, 2nd fret. So you've got that sort of shape. And when you're strumming, you don't pick the lowest string because it's got an X, so you just strum those 5. Okay, and on the piano we have A, C and E. Okay, next up we've got D minor. So D minor is a little bit less common than some of the others we've done. You've got your first finger on the 1st fret of the 1st string, and then you've got your 2nd finger on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, and then your 3rd finger on the 2nd string, 3rd fret. So you've got a shape like that. Quite a tricky chord, D minor. Okay, and in terms of strumming, you don't strum the bottom 2 strings because they've got X's. So the top 4. And on the piano we have D, F and A. And with the bass note. Okay, and next up we have the C chord. So C chord, you've got your first finger on the 2nd string, 1st fret, and then your 2nd finger on the 4th string, 2nd fret, and your 3rd finger on the 5th string, 3rd fret. So it makes a sort of diagonal line like that, and it sounds like that. So in terms of picking, you don't pick that lowest string, you pick the other 5. Okay, C major is basically the most common chord that you'll come across on the piano. So all of the beginners and more advanced pianists will have started with a note called the middle C, which is the middle of the piano, and we maybe do butterflies and things like that using the middle C. So C major is C, E, and G. And if you want to add a bass note, next up we have G chord. So G chord is a very common one for guitarists. We use G an awful lot. There is an easy way to play G, which is just with one finger on the top G, and you just strum the top 4 strings. But most of the students I will try and teach this whole chord to sort of soon and do the full shape too, because it's a good one for stretching your fingers out. So we've got our first finger on the 5th string 2nd fret, and then our second finger on the 6th string 3rd fret, and then your third finger on the 1st string 3rd fret. So a lovely chord, G. Okay, and in terms of strumming, you are strumming all of the strings. Okay, G on the piano is a G, a B, and a D. Okay, and next up we have F. So F is a little bit tricky. A lot of more advanced guitarists struggle with F. So there are a few different ways of playing it. So we've got basically our first finger on the 2nd string 1st fret, and then our second finger on the 3rd string 2nd fret, and then our third finger on the 4th string 3rd fret, and then you've got sort of a diagonal line again, a bit like a C but squashed up. Okay, so what I haven't sort of talked about is that finger could be pushed down over the over 2 strings called a little bar. So if you push that down, it sounds a bit more like an F, and then you're strumming the top 4 strings. Okay, if you want a slightly easier version, you can just use the fingertips, and it actually sounds an F major 7, but for a lot of songs that would work. If you want a more advanced and you want to take it to the next level, you could actually extend that bar throughout the whole guitar fretboard, and that makes a full F. And an F on the piano is F, A, and C. And with the bass note. Okay, so next up we have E7, which is just 2 fingers. So we've got our first finger on the 3rd string 1st fret, and then our second finger on the 5th string 2nd fret. And it's a bit like an E shape without one of the fingers, so you've got a little kind of hole in the shape. Okay, and it sounds like that. Okay, and the 7ths on the piano are a little bit easier to explain. So we have our E major, so E, G sharp, and B. And to get it to be a 7th, we need to add another note, the 7th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we were to go up the scale, it's the flattened 7th. So you've got 4 notes now. E, G sharp, B, and D. Okay, and next we've got A7. So A7, you have your first finger on the 4th string 2nd fret, and your second finger or third finger, I'm not really sure which one you might prefer, on the second string, second fret. So again, it's like the A shape, but with a finger missing, so with a hole. And in terms of strumming, you've got an X, so you don't play that lowest string. So for A7, in a similar way, you've got the A major chord, A, C sharp and E, and then you need to count 7 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's the flattened 7th, A, C sharp, E and G. Okay, so next we've got D7. So D7 is basically a bit like a D shape, but reversed. So we've got our first finger on the second string first fret. We've got our second finger on the third string second fret, and then our third finger on the first string second fret. Okay, and you don't play the bottom 2 strings, so you just play the top 4. Okay, and for D7, you've got our normal D major, so D, F sharp and A, and then we need to add our 7th, which would be a C, so D, F sharp, A, C. Okay, so next up you've got G7. So G7 is first finger on the first string first fret, second finger on the 5th string second fret, and the third finger on the 6th string third fret. So this is like a stretched out C. Okay, and for G7, we've got our G, B, and D, and then we're going to add our 7th note, so which is an F, G, B, D, and F. Okay, and lastly, we've got the B7 chord, which is quite a tricky chord actually. So you've got your first finger on the 4th string first fret. You've got your second finger on the 5th string second fret. You've got your third finger on the 3rd string second fret, and then you've got your little finger on the 1st string second fret. So you've got kind of a bit of a kind of zigzaggy type shape. And you also, in terms of picking, don't play that bottom string. Okay, and on the piano, a B7 would be B, D sharp, F sharp, and A. Okay, I hope you found that useful. So there's quite a lot in there, quite a lot of chords, but I thought I'd just do it in one lesson so you've got a bit of a kind of dictionary, if you like. Do use it on the song lessons, and also I'll do a quick lesson on composition so you can kind of get creative and do practice swapping between the chords as well, which is how you basically kind of build up your finger memory, okay, on the piano and on the guitar. Okay, have fun.